Přesně takový název dostal následující blok. Právě tohle jsou oblasti, které byly v průběhu konference zmiňovány už mnohokrát, a to z nejrůznějších úhlů pohledu. O důležitosti těchto klíčových problematik si budeme teď povídat s odborníky z různých oborů, které ze zmíněných faktorů považujete za největší výzvu, kterým jsme připraveni čelit, jakým dalším výzvám bude evropské zemědělství a potravinářství čelit, tak také to jsou otázky, na které se budou snažit odpovědět naši další hosté. Proto prosím, aby přišli sem dopředu ke stolu. Pan profesor Zdeněk Opatrný z katedry experimentální biologie rostlin Přírodovědecké fakulty Univerzity Karlovy. Vítám také Luce Haustermanse ze společnosti Yara Europe. Dále vítám Emily Negrin, viceprezidentku společnosti Inari. A jsem moc ráda, že mohu přivítat i provozního ředitele společnosti The Voluntary Initiative, pana Neala Evanse. A v neposlední řadě doufám, že jsme už ve spojení s paní Schimpf z organizace Friends of the Earth International. I hope we can see and hear each other. Dobrý den. Nice to see you, Mrs. Schimpf.
Hello, welcome.
Perfect, we hear you. So I will continue a few words in Czech and then, of course, in English. Dovolte mi, abych ještě ve stručnosti naše panelisty představila. Pan profesor Zdeněk Opatrný patří mezi zakladatele oboru biotechnologií, které lze využít při množení a šlechtění rostlin. Jako vědecký pracovník oboru botaniky Československé akademie věd zahájil své tehdy průkopnické studie o aplikaci biologických metod v botanice in vitro technik pro poznání mechanismů morfogeneze rostlin. Dnes je emeritním profesorem Univerzity Karlovy, je také autorem téměř 200 odborných publikací a několika monografií. Luc Haustermans, vítejte u nás, dobrý den. Luc Haustermans je vedoucí oddělení pro vztahy s veřejností a průmyslem společnosti Yara Europe. Do této společnosti nastoupil už před 8 lety, zastával pozice ředitele, viceprezidenta pro inovace, vyvíjel nové obchodní koncepty, a to v oblasti zemědělství a nízkouhlíkové výroby. A zásadně přispěl k rozvoji inovačního plánu společnosti Yara směrem k dekarbonizaci výroby, vývoji čistého čpavku jako lodního paliva nebo podpoře oběhového hospodářství. Vítejte u nás, dobrý den. Jsem ráda, že mohu tedy přivítat také Schimpf z Friends of the Earth International. Tato agronomka působila v různých občanských organizacích v oblasti obchodu se zemědělskými produkty, biologické rozmanitosti, potravin a GMO v Německu, ale i na evropské úrovni. V současnosti Schimpf působí v organizaci Friends of the Earth of Europe, kde se zaměřuje na oblast potravin a také je zároveň v představenstvu TP Organics. Welcome. We are really glad you joined to us to this international conference. Naším dalším hostem je viceprezidentka společnosti Inari, paní Emily Negrin, která je absolventkou University of Minnesota ve Spojených státech amerických. Dlouhé roky působila v oblasti globálního marketingu a komunikace, než zakotvila právě ve společnosti Inari, v níž uplatňuje své zkušenosti v oblasti potravinářství a zemědělství. Je zodpovědná za rozvoj vztahů se zúčastněnými stranami napříč celým řetězcem, tak, aby mohla přinášet udržitelná řešení společnosti Inari. Vítejte u nás. A jsem moc ráda, že zde mohu přivítat i provozního ředitele The Voluntary Initiative Neala Evanse, který původně pracoval ve výzkumu zaměřeném na pochopení epidemiologie chorob rostlin a na vývoji modelů pro předvídání těchto chorob. Ve Spojených státech se podílel na University California Davis na výzkumu chorob pistácií, potom se vrací do Velké Británie, aby pracoval v Rodhamstedu Research, a k Voluntary Initiative se Neal Evans Evans připojil před 4 lety. Zaměřuje se na postupy používání přípravků na ochranu rostlin před škodlivými organismy s cílem přispět k ochraně vody a životního prostředí. So, first of all, one question for you all, our guests. Which of these factors, like climate changes, drought, or new genomic techniques, is the biggest challenge from your point of view? Are we ready to face these challenges, and what other challenges will European agriculture and food face? Maybe a lady first.
Thank you. I think the biggest challenge we face is really around climate change. And the objectives around climate change are similar throughout the world. It's the approach in which we address these challenges where we are starting to see some differentiation. So Inari is a seed design company. We are focused on designing seeds that meet the needs of the world. And we're doing that through AI technology and advanced gene editing. So we truly believe that there is a great deal of potential within the seed itself that we can unlock and really gain sustainability potential that meets the needs not only of our planet, but the people who are growing our food and feed and fiber, and also the greater population. So what is it about gene editing technology that we believe is different from some of the other technologies that have been available? And it really boils down to some key revelations that we have seen in just the past 10 years alone. So when we look at the incredible advances that have taken place in terms of genome sequencing, we now understand things about the plants itself that we never understood before. And we're finding pathways within the natural DNA of the plant so that we can find new ways to unlock power within the plant itself to really enhance its full potential. There's also been amazing advancements in AI technology. So we're able to process data in new ways so that we can make more informed decisions faster. And the other key revelation is just in technology itself. It's incredible when you think all that has been done with CRISPR, and CRISPR just celebrated 10 years this year. So we've made incredible advancements with this fairly new technology in a pretty short period of time. And all of this is coming together as the world is recognizing a very extreme need to address sustainability. And it's not enough just to think about how do we prevent further damage to the planet, but how do we also equip our farmers today with the tools that they need to deal with the challenges that climate change has put in place on them today. You know, things like drought, extreme weather conditions, these are the realities of farmers today, and we need to provide them with solutions today to ensure that they can continue to meet those needs. There was a intergovernmental panel on climate change, and they talked a lot about the need for this dual approach to not only have tools and technology that are protecting our planet, but also that are adapting to the changing climate. We've also seen numerous productivity reports coming out that are showing that, you know, the historical productivity gains that we have kind of grown accustomed to are starting to decline because of the impact of climate change. So if we want to continue to meet the needs of a growing population, and we want to continue to care for our planet to ensure that, you know, farmers like Mike can hand down his farmland to future generations, we need to equip them with tools that meet the realities of today. So, you know, I think the Green Deal is a wonderful initiative, but it does require innovation. And, has been talked a great deal about, when you look at the United States and Canada and Latin America, Japan has their gene-edited tomato out on the market. You are seeing other countries move this technology forward. And I think it's because of the realization that it is a reasonable and safe tool to use in meeting the needs of the planet and the people. And, we need regulations that are right-sized and balanced and scientifically based to ensure that we can realize the full potential of this technology. And a little bit about Inari. So our company is only 6 years old. We have about 250 employees across 3 locations. So we were started in the Boston, Massachusetts area. We also have our probably largest facility in Indiana, where there's a lot more farmland to grow on. But we also have a facility in Ghent, Belgium. And, all of these locations are incredibly important to us. A lot of our initial scientific research is done in Boston and in Ghent, and then we do a lot of the product development then in Indiana. And we have, our primary focus is on corn and soybeans in the United States, and earlier this year we signed a partnership agreement with Negrin out of Australia to begin working on wheat. In the United States, we partner with independent seed companies. So we will develop the seed and then sell what we call parent seed to the seed companies. They will then bulk that up and sell it under their own brands to their farmer network. We are very proud this year during the growing season to offer 12 of our independent seed companies our first gene-edited soybean to use in their test fields. So they were able to start showcasing this technology to their farmer network and talk about the potential that was coming. And this is something that will be moving forward, and there will be a limited number of farmers growing this crop next year. And we will have other gene-edited soybean in the market probably in the next few years to come. So we're really excited about the potential. And one of the biggest questions we get from farmers in the U.S. is, what are we doing to help ensure that there is a robust export market for these products? Because farmers in the U.S. are excited to use the technology. They see the benefits of it. And as I said, we've had really wonderful conversations, across Latin America about it. So we're eager to equip them with the tools that they want. We very much believe in farmer choice and, creating pathways for a variety of different technologies to ensure farmers can make the decision that's best for their production and their land in order to continue to feed a growing population.
Thank you for your answer and also for introduction. Your 6 years old company, Inari. Ladies and gentlemen, I give space to our another guest, Mute Schimpf. The floor is yours, and we are waiting for your answer.
Thanks a lot for the invitation and the opportunity to present our view and assessment. For us, the biggest challenge is definitely the climate crisis. And as it was mentioned various times in the last 2 days, agriculture is caught in a vicious loop. On one hand, farming is contributing relevantly to the greenhouse gas emissions and to the climate change. But the agriculture sector also struggles with the impacts and the consequences of these climate disruptions.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Schimpf. I'm so sorry. Please try to get closer to the microphone because our interpreters can't translate to Czech so well. Yeah, perfect. We can try it and try to continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No problem. So I could not agree more with Commissioner Kyriakides' statement from yesterday. The biggest challenges are the loss of biodiversity and are the climate crisis. But I think let's tackle the real dimension of the problem. In a lot of European countries, in the last years, we faced most extreme weather conditions since countries started reporting weather. We had in some countries floods, in other countries the hottest summer or the second hottest summer. And there is no indication that this impact of the climate change will slow down. So what we need is an arable farming system that actually can cope with extreme weather conditions that cannot be predicted. And for this, I think we need a very diverse, very resilient food system. So we are in favor of innovation. We are in favor how technology can support farmers to produce the food that we all need. But if you think in this direction, so which crop can cope with an extreme drought in summer, when the cereal is actually producing the kernels, and then maybe faced that the whole field is flooded for various weeks over summer? And you think about systems like this, I think we really need innovative plant breeding. We really need actually thinking out of the box, challenge our assumptions, that maybe what is needed is a very other way how we do arable cropping, that we combine not only 2 different crops on one field, maybe do not combine a leguminous with a cereal. Maybe we really need to think out of the box, that we grow 4, 5, 8 different crops. And then we need plant breeders who are deliver these plants, who can deliver any kind of harvest. And we need technology support, how you put the seeds in the ground, how you can foster them, how you can harvest them. And I think for this, we really need to be honest also with the farmers we work with, that the current way how we do arable farming might not be ensure an income for farmers, might not ensure any kind of acceptable yields to feed the people in Europe. So if we look at gene technology, we think we really need to have effective solutions that must be two-branched. It must, on one hand, both reduce the environmental impact on agriculture and also make the sector much more resilient to the climate impacts. And honestly, as we just heard, CRISPR is a very new technology, so we don't know the long-term impacts of it. And we don't know if these technologies will be ready or scalable now. They are all in the pipeline, their research. There's hardly anything on the market, also not in other regions. And we don't know how GM-modified crops can cope in different weather and different soil conditions. But what we know is that agroecology and organic farming practices already work to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. They build crop resilience and they stabilize yields. So these are practices that have worked for decades or centuries, and we can continue to work on them in the future to be ready for the big challenges and the innovation that we need. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was Mutter Schimpf, und jetzt, now I will give the space to Luc Haustermans.
Okay, since it's a panel, I'll try to first of all build on what is said up to now. But maybe to first start with thanking you for being here, the opportunity, and also to quickly say who Yara is. So as Yara, we are a company stock listed in Norway. We're a global multinational active with operations in 60 countries, and we have installations in 13 European countries, and we sell to 160 countries, of which 30 are in Europe. So we really have both the European perspective on this, which is our home base, as the global perspective. Maybe first to take then back to the question, let's say that there was a reason why I switched personally from being in innovation to in corporate affairs. Because we have a lot of solutions available. And in the case of Yara, first of all, this started from the standpoint that we also have to do our part in addressing climate change. Because agriculture is a big part of the global emissions, and within that, fertilizer production globally is somewhere 5 to 6% of agricultural emissions. So we as a sector and as operators also need to do our part. And so next year we will start producing, and that's actually going back to where we were founded in 1905, producing again with renewable hydropower in Norway, and we're looking at projects with renewable power power in wind power in other countries of Europe. Does that matter? Yes, it reduces the footprint of fertilizers with 80 to 90%. And if you then look at the carbon footprint of wheat, it gets up to 20% carbon footprint reduction. Getting back to the, let's say, the more broader thematic of this conference, so a lot hinges on the farm to fork. As Yara, we actually support the goal of reducing nutrient losses by 50%. And we have a very similar analysis as was done by the Commission and which was done by many scientists, that this is possible and it's necessary, because the best way of reducing both the direct environmental footprint around the farm as the footprint on the climate is to use your fertilizers more efficiently, to have them end up in the crop and nowhere else. And then they indeed form their function, which is replacing the nutrients which are taken away by the harvest. However, we see that we are launching many solutions on precision farming. We are trying to develop more products first for organic farming, but also we are working on recovering, for example, sewage sludge and turn those into fertilizers to close a circular economy. And just already by using the right fertilizers together with precision farming, you can reduce fertilizers use just 20%, which is perfect for the farm to fork target. You actually increase the yield, and both the cost for the farmer goes down and the climate footprint is improved. And that is a bit our, let's say, frustration as Yara, that we see that even the simple solutions, which are not controversial, there's nobody who actually challenges us that we should use precision farming. It's not a societal debate, and nevertheless we struggle to see that being implemented broadly enough to have a real impact. And then where do we see the, let's say, the solutions, or why are we engaging then also me personally and as company, why are we engaging in this public debate? On one hand, indeed, because the regulators, such as the European Commission, play an important role. National governments play an important role because the Common Agricultural Policy, the plans, actually contain some of our biggest disappointments in how they would foster better crop nutrition practices. So they play a big role, but it's also a societal issue. So if a farmer does not get paid for an improved footprint, then it's much harder to convince the farmer to change his practice. And up to now, we still see the need to further develop that drive, and that requires, on one hand, a lot of transparency because the customer has to trust, and on the other hand, a value chain that is collaborating. And with certain companies, international players, we see definitely that willingness, but we don't see it everywhere fast enough to scale. So in short, yes, we think that we have the right ambition. We actually think we have a lot of solutions on the table, but we need to continue innovating. But we need to start implementing much faster if you really want to address the challenges on sustainability. And then to finally make the last comment, I think within the current crisis, we have realized on one hand how important food production is, but we have also realized that fertilizers play an enormous role in maintaining food production. And yes, we need to reduce the use of fertilizers per ton of crop output, but they play an important role into making farming productive and into feeding the world. And in the current disruptions that we see in the market, yes, we see that problem appearing. And yes, already in March, our CEO came out with a message very clearly saying, we can't say whether this will harm or benefit Yara, and at the moment it still results in positive profits for Yara. But we are very concerned that this is leading to additional hunger. And so according to current estimates, 200 million people are more exposed now to potential hunger risk than before the crisis broke out. So I think we have a responsibility to continue looking for the solutions which on one hand maintain productivity, which maintain the global flow of crops, and on the other hand, definitely address this urgent problem, which is climate change.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks to Luc Haustermans from Yara. And the same question for Mr. Neal Evans. Are we ready to face challenges like climate changes, drought, new genomic techniques, and so on?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to Sankmu, and also thank you for this rather natty tie, which
It's
is
really beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. So thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, basically, the voluntary initiative is a bit of a strange organisation, and the area that we work in is, ensuring the sustainability of crop production. And specifically promoting the responsible use of pesticides. And, in terms of the issues that we were asked to address, I agree with Emily here that, I think the largest challenge we face is perhaps climate change. So I'd like to basically take a focus on two areas. Firstly, climate change. We heard yesterday that there's a 1.5 degree change by 2030, which is the target date that we're all aiming at. But also to focus in on sustainability as well. And then after I've spoken about climate change, we'll take you through some of the voluntary initiative work. So basically, I'm a plant pathologist, unlike many of you who are geneticists. So I have no real experience in the NGT world, to be fair. But I thought I'd take a leaf out of Olivia de Matos' book from yesterday and take you through a real-life experience that I had. Basically, I did my PhD in Scotland, and there you can see I took the liberty, I hope you don't mind, of showing a nice picture for the end of the conference. So this is the Three Sisters, which are three mountains in Glencoe, in the Highlands of Scotland. It's a rather beautiful area, and in actual fact, I took this picture about 3 weeks ago when we were on vacation, introducing our son, who is now 20, to places where we used to live and showing him what a beautiful country it is. So I did my PhD at Glasgow, working back in the early 90s, and it was a project on linseed. And it was an EU-funded project, and I think you'll probably remember at the time the EU had a big project to try and become self-sufficient in oilseeds and not be reliant on the likes of Ukraine and Russia. So, but being a plant pathologist, we see sort of death and disease everywhere, really, and even taking the dog for a walk on the park, I see rust on grasses and mildew in the groundsel. But that sort of brings to my attention that there's this natural equilibrium within nature. And, perhaps there's something to be said for a degree of tolerance with some of these biotrophic pathogens. And this is perhaps an area that we could have a think about in terms of farming as well. Perhaps there's a level of tolerance of pests and diseases that we can allow before we need to actually intervene. So we heard from a couple of farmers yesterday who didn't really feel very included in the discussion. And this will be a running theme through this statement. And that's really all about communication. They didn't really care that it was a GMO or whatever. They just wanted the seed. They just wanted access to that technology. So basically, building on the plant pathology theme, I'm introducing the disease triangle now. So for plant pathogens to take effect, you need a susceptible host, a pathogenic organism, fungus or bacteria, but also you need the environmental aspect to be correct. So I was working on Alternaria linicola of linseed, and after I'd completed my PhD, I was invited to go across to California to work on pistachios. So if you haven't seen a pistachio tree before, I'll just sort of describe them. They're sort of 4 to 6 meters high, so fairly large and bushy. And if you've never seen agriculture in California, then it's a totally different scale. You would have 10 kilometers of pistachio with 10 kilometers of pistachio. Huge. It's all one clone, so you're talking a real proper monoculture. So I arrived in California to work on Alternaria, but the previous year, or 2 years previously, a new disease called Botryophiria, which isn't a nice disease, it's a necrotroph, so it's basically a killing disease, had jumped species from the coastal redwoods onto the pistachio orchards in the north of California, and it was slowly wiping the industry out. So all of the focus of our laboratory went to work on Botryophiria. And it was really interesting that the only way that we could do this was to develop an integrated pest management scheme that had two basic principles. There was the ability of the growers to actually prune and use cultural control to get the disease under control, but we also had to involve a robust fungicide program to get the disease under control. So I think that just sort of proves the importance of chemicals that we use every day that can be part of an integrated pest management plan. So that was California. Now on to sustainability and the work of the voluntary initiative. It's actually our 21st birthday this year, and that's kind of key because the voluntary initiative was raised back in 2001 in response to Tony Blair, Prime Minister at the time, and his government, who suggested that there was a need to introduce a pesticide tax. And the industry didn't think that was a very productive idea and got together and developed this voluntary initiative on pesticide use, as we were originally called. And we've been doing various bits and pieces, aspects of work since then, and the idea was that the industry would become self-regulatory and that we would use best practice use of pesticides, but only when required. And we developed 3 schemes. That's the National Register of Sprayer Operators, which originally had 8,000 operators, and the National Sprayer Testing Scheme. And we now have 21,000 sprayer operators, and the NSTS, the National Sprayer Testing Scheme, tests about 18,000 sprayers per year in the UK, which obviously isn't a particularly huge country. We also have crop management plans, which were developed about 15 years ago, and we have now redesigned those to become integrated pest management plans, and we have about 10 to 15,000 growers completing those each year. Over the years, much of the voluntary initiative work is to do with water campaigns, working with the water companies. And I'm going to be speaking with some of the colleagues in the room about this tomorrow in some future meetings. But I'll just give you an example of a use of integrated pest management. A lot of the work that we do is on oilseed rape herbicides. And the oilseed rape herbicides are grown using the oilseed rape as a break crop to basically clean up the land for the target species, which is blackgrass, which is a major pest of UK agriculture. And propyzamide is the main chemical that's used in this work program. And some of you might know that propyzamide is a very mobile compound in the soil, so it really does tend to get into the water. So we've basically been doing a lot of work with the growers and with spray operators, introducing the need for 6-meter buffer zones and other dedicated aspects of work to help prevent the chemicals getting into water. So I've got another example, but we're running short of time, so I'll just dip over that. So in terms of the voluntary initiative, we're basically looking at a holistic approach to integrated pest management, especially in the light of the loss of so many actives over the years, a lack of new products coming through the pipeline, and a need to retain the current toolbox. So that's about it from me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. By the way, beautiful landscape in Scotland you have. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to thank you to Neal Evans, and last but not least, Professor Zdeněk Opatrný, which is at home here. Pane profesore, tak prostor je váš. Myslím, že by mělo být zapnuto. Je to tak.
Je to tak. Dobře, last but not least, já v první řadě jsem rád, že jsem tady, vidím mnoho poslouchajících uší. Za druhé za prvé velmi děkuji organizátorům, že mi nabídli tuto příležitost, to znamená nejenom poslouchat velmi zajímavým příspěvkům, ale dokonce i do toho mluvit, což občas činím rád, ale slibuju moderátorce, že tentokrát to nepřeženu.
Promiňte, pane profesore,
ano,
ptám se, can we hear translate or not? Yeah, is it okay right
Yes. Yes.
Pane profesore.
Já se omlouvám, já bych použil svoji angličtinu, ale vzhledem k tomu, že už jsem ten svůj příspěvek si asi 5krát přemýšlel podle toho, jak šel běh věcí, tak improvizuji a tam přeci jen dám přednost své češtině. Takže reagoval bych na to, co už tady vlastně bylo řečeno, když jsme tedy ten panel, který to má dělat. V první řadě mě fascinovaly přednášky dvou mých dřívějších kolegů, to znamená profesora Doležela a Aleše Pečinky, ale živou vodou pro mě byl ten příspěvek Majka Ajovy, který, já bych řekl, že když by se namnožil a rozeslal po České republice nebo po školách, tak by mohl fungovat jako tedy učební pomůcka. Proč si dovoluji tady k tomu takhle mluvit? Za svého života jsem prošel, jak já říkám, 3 rezorty. Čtvrtstoletí ve zmíněném Ústavu experimentální botaniky. To je ten ústav, ze kterého jsou ty krásná šlechtěná jablka, nebo také ze kterých jsou ty kolegové, kteří tady mluvili. Potom 10 let v Centrálním zemědělském ústavu v Praze, tuzemští znají, Výzkumný ústav rostlinné výroby. No a pak mě přeci jenom srdce dohnalo zpátky na fakultu a mohu si takhle srovnávat 3 tyto věty. Mým nicméně hlavním polem byl základní výzkum. Takže po léta sleduji, jak se v podstatě vyvíjí naše schopnost imitovat rychle onu evoluci. A opakovaně třeba z těch příspěvků, které tady byly, jsem nesnad fascinován, ale jako registruji pořád, počkáme s využitím těch metod, až budeme mít možnosti jako ty nástroje, kterými si někam dobereme. V případě GM se domnívám, že ty nástroje už máme zhruba 30 let po ruce. V případě takzvaných new breeding techniques už je máme natolik zkušené, že opravdu tady jde spíš otázku legislativy a ideologie a vysvětlení tedy těm ještě nepoučeným v uvozovkách zemědělcům, jak to mají používat a co s tím dělat. Tady vám uteču trochu z otázky, samozřejmě studium biologie rostlin rezistentních ke zmíněným stresům, to znamená vysoká teplota, sucho, salinita, má tradici, já nevím, 60 let a ty nové techniky na to byly používány, jsou používány už dobře 10 let nebo dál. Mike zmínil třeba jejich kukuřice, které jsou odolné k suchu, tak ty kukuřice to je tak, jestli se nepletu, Pioneer 2010 a potom Syngenta a potom některé další firmy, které je běžně na trhu, tedy prodávají a používají se. Je otázka, nakolik je implementovat a budeme schopni do evropského zemědělství. A další otázka, nakolik budeme tedy schopni implementovat ony MBT, kde zase tam jsem trochu malformován tím základním výzkumem, ale opravdu velmi pořád se snažit o to, jak přesně odliším, co udělal CRISPR a co udělala, dejme tomu, nitrozometylmočovina nebo prostě příroda. Já to z určitého pohledu považuji za plýtvání časem a plýtvání spoustou prostředků. Na závěr bych jenom možná řekl, budete možná mít komentář k tomu, co povídám, že postrádám v tomhletom programu a i často něco, čemu se říká communication with audience or communication with society. Prostě speciální zaměření na to, jak rozumně sdělovat veřejnosti, o čem to všechno je. Zase Mike zmínil, jak se v podstatě tento proces prošvihl někde na začátku éry GM, kdy prostě náhle se objevily flavor saver potatoes, potatoes tomatoes a další podobné hity, aniž na to byla tedy veřejnost připravena a jak k čemu to postupně vedlo, to v podstatě víme. No a jako jeden z možných příkladů jsem si tady vzal, je to v češtině, takže omlouvám se jaksi kolegům anglicky mluvícím, ale tohle je třeba časopis pro výuku na základních a středních školách, pač my na fakultě učíme nejenom co učit, ale také jak učit. A v podstatě je tady zpracována jedna diplomová práce, je to z roku 2019, a je tam zpracována právě problematika GM plants nebo GE plants, odolných nebo tolerantních k suchu, salinitě a podobně. V naprosté většině učebnic pro středoškoláky nic takového v našem státě nenajdete. A jsou to jako věci strašně důležité. No a na závěr bych jenom ještě dal takovou kasířskou otázku. Asi by neměl být problém, pokud tedy se Evropa rozumně domluví a brzy. Děkuji paní Petře Jora, že nám tady řekla, že to možná stihneme do roku 2024 nebo 2025. Se domluví teda na nějaké rozumnější legislativě, tak by asi byla možná rychlá implementace pro klasické šlechtění nebo pro konvenční zemědělství, tak jak tomu je v mnoha státech světa. Ale položím otázku jaksi ekologickým nebo organickým zemědělcům, jako co s tímhletím udělají, poněvadž opravdu kombinace jaksi precizní mutageneze, což je BT, když už tedy mám alergii proti GM, a požadavku, které má ekologické zemědělství, to znamená přirozenou odolnost jaksi k různým stresům, možnost používat přijatelné insekticidy, jako jestli tohle to budou moci začlenit, když mají ty své dosud stále, myslím, platící mantry, žádná průmyslová hnojiva, žádné pesticidy a hlavně zároveň žádné GMO. Takže to je otázka, nakolik jaksi bude ochotná nejenom veřejnost, ale zejména komunita organického zemědělství k modifikacím svého myšlení a strategie a reklamy a všeho s tím souvisejícího. Já netuším, jestli jsem přetáhl svých 5 minut, snad ne o mnoho. Děkuji vám za trpělivost, za, řekl bych, ochotu poslouchat toto improvizované povídání a jsem opravdu velmi rád, že jsem tady mohl být. Díky.
My děkujeme vám, pane profesore, že jste se zúčastnil této mezinárodní konference. Mě zaujala jedna věta, kterou jste řekl. S údivem pozoruji, jak se vyvíjí naše schopnost imitovat evoluci. Dámy a pánové, ladies and gentlemen, now let me open the discussion. So if you have some questions on our guest, and I remind you that Mute Schimpf is still with us, but online. So now it's the time for your questions. Yes, please microphone.
Dobrý den, Martin Suchánek, společnost Biopreparáty. Já se chci za Českou republiku pochlubit, protože tady je dlouholetý výzkum mikrobiálních přípravků, který začal už někdy v 70. letech. Především tedy mykoparazitických hub, který jsou vlastně dneska moderní fenomenon v ochraně rostlin. A my jsme si vybrali před 30 lety jeden z těch výzkumných klonů houbu Pythium oligandrum, která je dneska široce registrovaná v Evropské unii. A máme ambici nahradit tedy pokleslou funkčnost chemických fungicidů. Tu pokleslou funkčnost myslím tedy především v ochraně kořenového systému a půdních patogenů. A tady bych si dovolil tedy oslovit pana Neala Evanse. Rádi mu pošleme vzorky, protože to je samozřejmě dneska registrovaný ve Spojeném království. A ty testy na alternária, na verticíly a na řepce budeme rádi, když je budeme moct u něj udělat.
Thank you for your reaction and please for answer to Mr. Evans.
Well, thank you very much for the question. Unfortunately, I no longer work in research, so I'm not the best person to send some samples to. But if you catch me after during lunch, then I could probably pass you on to some of my former colleagues. I hope that is okay.
Thank you. Another one.
I'm Pavel Horčička, weed breeder, and I have one question for Luc and for Professor Opatrný. If there is still a valid Liebig law of minimum, I mean concerning nitrogen, because otherwise we are talking that NBT solve everything, but that's my question.
Yeah, question for Luc Haustermans and for Professor Opatrný.
Yes, the problem is...
So is the Liebig law of minimum still valid? Yes, I'm not an agronomist, but as far as I listen to my colleagues, yes, it still remains one of the biggest brakes on crop growth. And it's also a circle which is very hard or almost impossible to close. What I mean is, yes, you can recover a lot of the phosphorus, for example, from waste, but along the whole process you have the natural emissions of nitrogen which return it to the place where it originally was, which was the air as N2. So yes, it's still the case. If the underlying question is, do we of course look at what will GMOs mean for future nitrogen use and nitrogen fixation? Yes, of course, as a company, we look at that. Let's say that as our internal assessment is nuanced. We think that we still have enough time to reinvent ourselves as a company before that's really resolving the world's need for nitrogen. But of course, it's something we are very interested in, and possibly there are applications where this makes very much sense.
Thank you, Mr. Haustermans.
No more comment.
And you can react, of course.
I just wanted to add that, so we are looking at how we can address nitrogen with gene editing technology. So within corn, so within each of the crops that Inari is addressing, we've set goals. And within corn, our goal is to increase yield by 10% while simultaneously driving down the need for water and nitrogen by up to 40%. So these are goals, and they're big goals, and we're not going to hit them with the first products. But we do have reason to believe that we found pathways that will help us get there through the natural genes of the plant.
So are you satisfied with these answers? Yeah? Okay. Another one has a question? If not, let me focus on Mute Schimpf. If she is still with us. No, she isn't. Okay, we will try connection again. Maybe my question for Neal Evans. From your point of view, which is the bigger threat, climate change or political decisions?
Thank you for the question. I would say climate change, because I've already given an example that it's happening. Some of the models that we developed whilst I was at Rothamsted that you mentioned previously, we use those disease decision support models and actually input climate change data modelled for 2030 and 2050. And that was 10, 15 years ago. And now we are seeing those new diseases coming in the UK. So it's actually happening. So I think that's probably the best thing to say. And also, political change doesn't always have to be for the worse, and it's something that can change.
Thank you. Let me give the same question to Luc Haustermans.
I actually don't have very much more to add. No, I think that indeed climate change is the biggest issue and the biggest challenge, and we have many solutions, and part of the solution is political coordination, and we see that there is a much stronger demand from our societies to address this challenge. But of course, it's not only up to the political world, it's also up to companies, their own commitment, it's up to consumers, it's up to everybody in society. But it's definitely the most complex challenge because it has so many angles, even if you just look at the environment from an agricultural standpoint.
Thank you very much. Someone wants to react on this question? No? In auditorium, yeah? Mr. Hlaváček?
Děkuji za slovo. Já zásadně nesouhlasím s tím názorem a stanoviskem, protože více jak 20 let řešíme klimatickou změnu a já jsem stačil přitom zestárnout. A my jsme se neposunuli ani o milimetr. My jenom hovoříme, diskutujeme a pro mě jako zemědělce, pro mě jako spotřebitele je neschopnost Evropské unie rozhodnout v daném čase, zkrátka a zahájit realizaci. A proto položím otázku a nevím, kdo na ní bude ochoten odpovědět. Je možný, aby Evropská komise a Evropský parlament přijal potřebnou legislativu ve zkráceném legislativním procesu v době, kdy jsme ve válečné době, mimořádné době, v době extrémní nejistoty? Děkuji.
Tak nejsem si jistá, který z našich hostů by mohl odpovědět panu Hlaváčkovi. Pokud nikdo, berme to spíš jako takový návrh na další zamyšlení, postřeh z praxe. Ano, možná Luc Haustermans se ujme.
I don't have an answer to your question itself, but just to make it concrete about advancing. So, as Yara, yes, we have already reduced our own footprint with 57% in Europe and 45% worldwide. But indeed, to go to that climate neutral fertilizer is economically a massive step. And it's a massive step also for farmers because it's expensive. If you, however, look at the price that it will affect on the supermarket shelf of potatoes, of bread or so on, we are really literally talking less than 10 euro cent per kilo, or we are really talking about numbers that don't matter for, let's say, average consumers in our European society. And yes, that is also a frustration I share, that we can't get that sorted out.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Luc Haustermans. Dámy a pánové, dovolte mi, abych v tuto chvíli omluvila paní Mute Schimpf, která už se musela odpojit z naší konference, takže pokud by někdo z vás měl dotaz právě na ní, tak v tuto chvíli už to není možné. Každopádně jsem ráda, že alespoň část této panelové diskuse mohla strávit s námi. A opět výzva k vám, k publiku. Máte někdo dotaz na naše vzácné hosty? Je poslední příležitost se přihlásit, protože myslím, že za malý okamžik už naše konference pomalu bude zpět ke konci. Samozřejmě jste zváni k neformálním rozhovorům během závěrečného oběda. Dámy a pánové, dovolte mi, abych tedy položila možná otázku, kterou jsem si chystala pro Mute Schimpf, ale i našim dalším hostům. do you think that organic farming is beneficial for sustainability, and in what way? No, pan profesor se usmívá.
Organic farming beru jako krásný projev lidské svobody pěstovat rostliny tak, jako je pěstoval můj děda. Já jsem vyrostl v jeho zemědělském malém podniku na absolutním organic farming a když si představím tuto republiku, jak je plná malých farem, tak to zní krásně, ale když mu zpátky realitu, tak se domnívám, že to opravdu není řešení. Opět ještě v dobách, kdy jsem jezdíval do Bruselu v uvozovkách, tak v rámci toho programu Agriculture, Food Science and Biotechnology jsme tam měli svoji skupinu, vedle skupiny Organic Farming. Možná, že některým z přítomných bude známo jméno profesor Urs Nigli, jakožto ředitel jednoho švýcarského ústavu, jako v podstatě guru jako této problematiky. My jsme se vždycky krásně hádali, ale nakonec jsme se docela hezky domluvili. A jako před asi 2 lety jsem zjistil, že je vlastně v kladbě ve Švýcarsku, poněvadž se odvážil konstatovat, že když použijeme NBT techniky pro jaksi šlechtění různých plodin, tak se dostaneme vlastně postupně k tomu, o čem tady hovořil profesor Doležel, to znamená vlastně nové domestifikaci, buď úplné, nebo aspoň částečné. Vrátíme těm rostlinám prostě ty geny, které by tam potřebovali. A tím pádem jako snížíme výrazně nezbytnost používat ty či ony chemické látky pro jejich pěstování. Takže se přimluvil za NBT jako součást strategie organického zemědělství a v podstatě, mám-li věřit tisku, tak na to reagovala vlastně tamní organická veřejnost vzkazem vedení ústavu, že by Nigli měl jednou dostat náhubek. Omlouvám se za toto slovo, ale v podstatě to bylo tak. Čili je to otázka, kde potom vlastně končí ta rozumná ne tolerance, ale přemýšlení nad věcmi a kde funguje čistá ideologie. Když si k tomu přidám ještě to, co tady bylo řečeno, a já že jako se jinak nevěděl, že 25% vlastně zemědělství by mělo být jako organické v budoucnu a k tomu všechny tyhle všechna tato drakonická omezení, tak já si bohužel opravdu nemyslím, že organické zemědělství, tedy ekozemědělství, by bylo jaksi skvělé pro budoucnost Evropy, její sustainability a tak dále. Promiňte, rozmluvil jsem se moc, poněvadž je to tak. No.
V pořádku. Já možná v této souvislosti na pana profesora Opatrného navážu stručnou otázkou mířenou možná k pánům Nealu Evansovi a Lucu Haustermanovi. Are socioeconomic impacts and the needs of the EU population not forgotten when taking environmental protection measures? So, gentlemen, who first?
Okay, I'm the volunteer to answer first. So, no, I think it's unfair to say that it's forgotten. If there's one thing which we are good at in European policy making is doing consultations and writing impact assessments. So I don't think it's entirely unfair to say that this is forgotten. However, I think the public debate about it is still, let's say, too much focused on slogans. In the end, what we discussed a lot during these 2 days is about trade-offs. Yes, you have a preferred scenario, and yes, I also like the quality of good organic food from my local farmer, but I'm also very much aware of the global food production needs. I'm also aware of what the benefits are of genomic techniques, but I also have as a person individual some concerns. But that's all about trade-offs. And that's a difficult discussion, which is maybe not about do we forget these socioeconomic impacts, but do we have the right level of debate and indeed education, as you said.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a think about this as well and wrote down some notes. So I'm just going to have a quick read of this. You know, basically the fact that everybody needs a healthy, sustainable environment is, I think, well understood. So its protection is important to us all. However, when you look at some of the actions that we have taken in the name of protecting the environment, we have to sort of question whether they have been proportionate or not. And to better understand whether the actions that we are taking are proportionate, there ought to be a proper impact assessment undertaken, and that could also look at socioeconomic factors. It's clear that proposed actions have a cost. Then we ought to have some level of certainty that the benefit will be worth it and the benefit will outweigh the cost.
Thank you very much. Dámy a pánové, tak má ještě někdo nějaký dotaz na naše vzácné hosty? Pokud ne, tak mi dovolte, abych vás 4, protože jste už závěrečnými hosty této mezinárodní vědecké konference, každého poprosila o jedno velmi krátké, stručné poselství v souvislosti s Agri-Food, safety and security. Pane profesore.
Já si strašně přeju, aby realizovatelné sny o budoucím evropském zemědělství se staly opravdu realitou a brzo a dříve, než na nás zase dopadne další jiná katastrofa, kterou budeme řešit. A jsem velice mile překvapen, kolik se sešlo zde lidí a nakolik naslouchali. Děkujeme vám.
My děkujeme vám, děkujeme za účast. Mr. Luc Haustermans.
Yes, so I think we all agree in this room that addressing both the goal of productive farming to feed the world and making it more sustainable is a big challenge. The tagline of my company is knowledge grows, and that's not to be cheesy. I think as all stakeholders here in this room, we have a duty to share that knowledge, to continue working towards solutions, and most of all, implement them.
Thank you.
So I would leave you with the thought of, you know, I think everyone here agreed that our biggest challenge really is climate change. And we are plainly running out of time. You know, could we rely on Mother Nature to adapt? Because she has adapted before, and yes, but when we look at how long it takes for nature to adapt on its own, we don't have that kind of time. It's the one luxury we are truly running out of at this point. And I think that's the beauty of new technology like gene editing, is it allows us to enhance the natural processes within a plant and help us get nature to adapt quicker so that we can meet the multiple demands that are coming upon the farming community.
Emily Negrin, thank you for being us.
Well, I think the final word goes to me. So thank you very much. I think we've all heard and we all agree that the Farm to Fork proposal is very ambitious in a very short timescale. But I think it all comes back to what I just mentioned, proportionality, and that there's a real need for us to be reasonable in terms of what is possible and to approach it with a level of balance.
Thank you. Dámy a pánové, tak to už byly definitivně poslední příspěvky letošní mezinárodní konference, které jsme měli možnost se v tak hojném počtu zúčastnit. Konference s názvem European Agri-Food Sustainability and Innovation. Věřím tomu, že jste načerpali spoustu inspirace. Děkuji úplně všem, kteří se od včerejška představili nejenom vám tady, ale zůstanou vlastně na věky i na našem videozáznamu, který vám potom v následujících dnech bude plně k dispozici na webových stránkách Ministerstva zemědělství České republiky. Děkujeme za podporu této konference. Já děkuji paní ředitelce Jitce Getcové a celému jejímu týmu v čele se Zuzanou Malinovou, že takhle velkou akci byli schopni dát dohromady a byli schopni propojit tolik lidí z nejrůznějších oborů a lidí, kteří vidí tuto problematiku nejrůznějšími perspektivami. Dámy a pánové, věřím tomu, že budete odjíždět do svých domovů, tedy naplněni nejenom novými myšlenkami, ale že jste si třeba i tady při nejrůznějších neformálních setkáních společně odpočinuli. Já vám přeju šťastný návrat kamkoliv, kam se vracíte. Máme tu začátek adventní doby, pro mnohé z vás to určitě budou také možná hektické chvíle, pro jiné zase třeba chvíle klidu. Já vám všem přeju všechno dobré a všechno nejlepší pochopitelně přeju společnému zemědělství v Evropské unii. Teď už přijměte mé pozvání k obědu. Děkuji za pozornost.